Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, okay, so I guess she knows that. She's sharing now.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to share. I just opened up. So I should exit? Okay.
To let him go. Yeah. Okay. They get those, start. I'm just totally understanding.
Even the city around. On the loud.
That should be better. No more. Go by long. We go ahead and get the roll call. Director Smith. Here. Director Rogers. Here. Director Perezio. Here. Director Lawson is not with us. Secretary Delara. Here. Vice President Rodriguez.
Here.
And President Barraza.
Yeah, thank you. We can join me for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Just a little protocol, if the United States flag, people on the left. That's good to know.
That's good.
I would get completed it's a right of it.
It's the, when you're looking at it, it should be a-
Say because they were looking at it.
from that side, yeah.
So, next item.
And I'm not making you steal it. Let's do it.
So, approval of the agenda. So, first, second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, seeing no opposition, we're gonna go ahead and move forward. Item D, public comment. At this time, comments from the audience may be made on items not listed on the agenda that are of public interest and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The board has a policy of limiting speakers to no more than 3 minutes. The board cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. Public input may be offered on agenda items when they come up for discussion and or action. Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Next up is item E, diversity, equity and inclusion, DEI. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Stephen. Or do we actually?
Can I do the, I guess maybe I have a public comment. So, as you're aware, we have, the governance workshop scheduled for this Thursday at 4 o'clock at the RAP office. We have learned, unfortunately, Director Rodriguez wasn't able to have it on his calendar, so wasn't aware of it, so now has a conflict. And then we also have a couple of directors that are going to be attending virtually. Director Rogers as well as Director Lawson. And we feel strongly that the governance workshop is extremely important for all directors to be in person for that event. So we're recommending that this Thursday meeting be canceled and rescheduled. So Andrea is going to tomorrow get out a doodle poll with some potential dates in February. So that we can get that back on the books, because we now are canceling Larry Walker coming down on Wednesday, and so we need to reschedule those travel arrangements, et cetera. But if we can ask as directors if there's, obviously it was difficult for you to know, not having it on the calendar, but if people do have conflicts or if they're unable to do these things in person, please let us know, please let staff know, so that we can either date or but if you can at all possible, recognizing that there's 7 directors working together. So as much as possible, if you can coordinate the person, would certainly be appreciated. Anyway, so but an important effort for us, Director Delara.
I'm wondering, should we think about postponing it until March, because we have a lot of meetings in February.
I know we do, we're trying to run it as much in alignment with our strategic planning process, but I do know February is going to be challenging. I would recommend, let's see if we can incorporate a date in February. If we need to, we'll roll to March, but I think the important part is that we do get a date that all directors can be in person.
Is there a show of hands for February and as opposed to March, the chill has.
So like my preference would be to do it as soon as possible, especially if there's some sort of continuation on. How I saw it was that this one and that meeting were on the same week because there was some of these ones that are alignment of continuing against. So I wouldn't want it to come too far out, also understanding that we all have our things going on. I also had mentioned to Curtis that maybe if we can't reschedule it for within a month, maybe just keeping it for this Thursday, but then again, it's just. There has to be travel arrangements and all that, so I'm not sure. That is the other thing that I mentioned, like February is a busy month for us with the community workshops. But if we can find a meeting in February, I'm okay with March, whatever.
I'm okay with February too.
Event,
So,
February.
I'm okay with February, but I also would like, for us to try to make an effort. I know some of us do, you know, like, I know it's hard because there are some times that we can't come to meetings. But trying to make an effort to get for this one because it is important with the strategic, since it aligns with the strategic plan and the other meeting.
And these,
I would agree, I think I can.
February,
February's good.
okay, I'm good with February or March, I just want to make sure that.
And we'll put out dates for February and hopefully we can come to an alignment on a date that works for everybody, but the whole worst case that goes to the March one would be that, but. You know, certainly as much as possible, we have Director Logston on with us yet. So I'll have to make a personal communication with him, but anyway, I appreciate your understanding with this and canceling this Thursday and we'll get another date on the calendar as soon as possible. Well, I have, thank you.
And were you gonna introduce them or?
Absolutely, yeah. So.
I was ready to start talking.
So yeah, so going into this session, I think some of us were around about 3 years ago when we did some work with Activate Inclusion. We appreciated the work that both Trace Cindy did back then. And so we looked at it as a good way of continuing the efforts that were talked about back then. A lot of that was broadly with DEI, specific in those areas, but this one's going to be more focused on inclusion. So we really feel it's important for us to not only consider inclusion within the organization, but also we're looking to build our strategic plan and looking to help systems amplifiers, that's a tongue twister for me. And being equitable in our outreach to our so felt it was a good way to work internally and then from there we can expand out. So I'll turn the time over to Sandra. You guys can introduce ladies, can introduce yourself, please. From there.
Go first.
My name's Tress Jimenez and I've been working with staff, and so I saw all of you on some of those board meetings online. It's nice to see you in person, and it's nice to be able to be here today to support Sindri. I'm mostly just here because we were able to do the staff session this morning and the board session all on the same day, and so I'm mostly just gonna be, I'll be quiet and I'm gonna be supportive and just to be able to help you with whatever you need to happen in this session, but thanks for allowing me to be here.
And I'm Sindri Anderson. I know many of you, but I haven't met you yet. And we haven't been in person. I'm like vibrating with excitement to be in IRL with humans. It's, it's getting more rare in our field of education and for sake of inclusion and culture building. But it's so important. So I really honor you for making the commitment and we use the time wisely. I'll give you a little sense of where we're going. But underscore the word culture here because culture can do the lifting for you. If you embed the values, the ways you want to operate, if they just become who and how you are, it's seamless, it happens and it's productive and positive. And so that's our kind of ultimate goal, I think, is to have you all really kind of review your culture, see where you can tune it up to be to have the values, you know, beneath it that make it, you know, make you proud of it, make it work. So that's a little bit of the high level there. Our agenda is pretty straightforward. We're gonna get a little more set up, do a little warm up. I'll share back some of the data themes from our conversations I had with many of you. Then we'll have some group, individual and then group values exploration, because values are so core to us and they're kind of invisible to others probably. So sharing that, what really matters to you around, you know, where do you stand on your values? And then we'll take a look at productive conflict, just the ability to have conflict that moves things forward, you know, doesn't do damage along the way, is full of curiosity and openness to new and different ways of seeing things. We may run out of time a little bit on that one, as I'm seeing the clock, but we can pick it up the next time too, we can go session. And then we'll make sure you name some takeaways, actions, thoughts, you know, and share those, so everyone gets a sense of what people are gonna take away and kind of work on, maybe support each other with that. Anything else I missed, Tracy? All right, so just getting started, our kind of warm up is stand a little bit because I would say that's is what do they do to serve on the board? What motivates you to be here? This is, you know, you're adding on to some very good lives to be here, and what's the big why for you? And then particularly something you're proud of that the board has accomplished it together. And I know you're relatively new, but you might know from the outside and actually have with this group to be able to speak to us. So I'm gonna give you just like a moment to collect your thoughts, and then we'll just go around, and I'll just go kind of in order so we don't have the awkward who's going next. We'll just go around. Okay, make sense? Questions about it? All right, give you a minute to think. If anyone's ready, you can start, and then therefore we'll start from there and go this way. Yeah.
Okay, so I serve on the board because I feel like if I am speaking for other people like me, that grew up like me, that usually don't have a voice. So that's why I serve on the board. I want to make sure that I represent those people. And I think the thing I'm most proud about is the fact that we did the lease that would receive 77% of the population that yes vote. Because I think we put a lot of work into that lease to make sure that we were able to get the most that we could out of tenants. So I was very proud that we did that.
Nice. Oh, would you want to volunteer to go that way? That's sure. All right.
Are we going clockwise?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The reason why I like to serve on the board is because I see myself as a problem solver and a fixer. I let people bring me problems and see how we can work together as a team to make things better in the world. And I'm most proud of working with Senator Garcia and testifying with the state legislature to expand the district to include the entire county, mainly because of the need of underserved in the East County.
And we have this Daniel on or not yet? No,
Not yet.
All right, so Chris.
Well, I don't serve on the board,
Yeah.
but
You're participating, board participation.
I guess, well, I didn't really think about it, but accomplishments of the body, I mean, those are two great ones. And I think it does stem back to the expansion of the district and including new two board members that represent that expanded area. So we have a larger, wider demographics that we're dealing with now. And I think that helps set it up for the lease of the hospital as well as the strategic planning that we're working on. I think we've always had pretty good strategic plans, but I am super excited about the new one that we are developing that's going to allow us to utilize those resources from the lease purchase agreement to expand our outreach and our efforts.
Right, why do I serve on this board?
I hope you have done some more of
Well, I serve on this board because I hope that I can bring some of my experience, my lived experience, nonprofit experience here in the Coachella Valley. And bring it as a matter of representation to the board so that the various issues and challenges that folks deal with, whether it be homelessness, housing insecurity and whatnot, that we can give a real voice to that and what people are dealing with. So that's, I guess, the reason I serve on this board. And I guess what I'm proud of so far is the amount of effort and intention that is being put into the strategic planning. And like in this meeting as well, I appreciate how much time is being taken to make sure that we're doing it and putting a lot of thought and effort behind it as a group together, and everyone sharing their ideas collectively has been very inspiring and encouraging to me.
So why do you serve on the board has kind of transitioned from when I started to my second term. So when I started, why I decided to serve on the board was because I didn't see, like on the board that was there at that time, I didn't see anybody that I felt that was like, let me say what a baby, that was like me. Somebody from the community, from ground up. And I felt also that the person that was running against me was not a good representative of my community and what my community needed. So that's why I ran for it. Why I continue to serve on the board is because I want to me, my community is very important. And I know that there's a lot of needs that we have in the community, and I wanna try to continue helping with those needs, even if it's just a little grain of salt in the thing, but that's why I serve on the board, to make sure that other people don't go through some of the things that we experienced with, of things that we have. So that's why I serve on the board. And then particularly proud of the mobile unit, of the accomplishments of the mobile unit, because right there we see hands-on the services being provided in the community. We give a lot of grants to different nonprofits, and yeah, we get the reports and everything, but we're not seeing it, it's not something that you see. So I'm really proud of that, the mobile unit, that it's helped a lot of people, and that and the COVID vaccines and everything, all that, I'm proud of.
So I serve on this board. I spent my whole life in public service, on both public side and campaign side. But I've been following the district work for a little over 10 years now. And when this seat became open, I had a huge nexus with healthcare, social determinants of health, especially housing and homelessness needs will attest to. But especially with the lease agreement, is I saw a real opportunity for me to provide some of my experience in strategic planning, in leveraging dollars, in how do we get more bang for our buck, for lack of a better word. And so that's primarily why I serve on this board. I'll echo everybody, as I said, I've followed this district for many years, so I'll echo the accomplishments that everybody's talked about. I would highlight them too, is I'm really proud of the efforts around the social determinants of health, specifically the Coachella Valley Behavioral Health Initiative, which I helped begin with this in conjunction with the district out of the supervisor's office. The investments in housing, and the partnership with the RISE that the district has done. And then, just to echo Denise a little bit too, and Chris's statement too, is that I've been through a lot of strategic planning in my life. This is probably one of the best ones that I'm actually involved in. And I see the engagement of the entire board and staff. In really looking at what's not only our North Star, but how are we really going to reach that North Star? So I think that's really one of the best accomplishments, most recently.
So I serve on the board, I think that's back to representation. So the backstory, I decided to run for the board, it was a few days before the deadline. And there was an individual that was about to run without any competition, and I think maybe that was a little bit of more of the encouragement, but say, hey, the voters have to, or they should at least be able to decide between at least two people. Thankfully, won with almost 80% of the vote. So I think that was like, hey, I think I made the right decision without ever like serving as an elected on the board. But more than anything, it's because of representation, like you mentioned, right? Bringing with me my background, values, experiences, professional experience, knowledge, and how does that translate to my vote or my decision with the board. Lived in the area that I represent for almost 20 years now. I'm not a native, but I think I'm pretty well versed on like what the needs are within the zone that I represent, and now more within Chula Valley as well. What I say that I'm the most proud of, and I don't know, I'm proud of a lot of the things that we worked on, but I'm specifically proud of the district and the work that they did around COVID. It was right after the expansion, and if that expansion wouldn't have happened, these services wouldn't have been able to have been taken to those areas of need. And so, I mean, Governor was down here, one of the programs, the district was the first one. I don't know if it was just statewide or nationwide, nationwide that was bringing vaccines and testing sites to the fields, right, or to the packing houses. And just the model of being able to see from the outside what the district was doing, I think within those really like hard times, I think it was exciting, and I'm just really proud, and I think it's something that we should always be very proud of. And then also thinking like we've done it once, like our bids, right, if something were to happen again, I think that we're even better prepared to be able to take action in scientific places.
Wow, so take that in. It was wonderful to hear, and each person just kind of lit up, right, with this mission and purpose and the meaning that you're making out of it. And we recognize it, really recognizes even you have other full lives going on. So it's really extraordinary that you've been able to accomplish these things you're proud of, given this. And that kind of goes to a little bit of complexity I was thinking about relative to this work together as, you know, and the word cohere and being coherent is kind of the one I want to have in your minds for what we're doing here, because you do have to differ. You're required by your zone to differ. That's what you're doing here, representing. So you can't be just like that easygoing, like, oh, we're all doing it. So but you want that really positive kind of tension and attention to the differences, and then, you know, work things out. So I just again, I think it's a high bar that you're doing amazingly, and hopefully we can even, you know, take care of the notch. And I hope the other piece is to just be sure we have some good norms about I wanted to actually get a few meeting norms up here. And what I mean by norms is just ways you agree to operate.
I just wanted to clarify that I'm not sure that we have anybody in the public.
We do, and it's things,
Yeah, but
online, no.
okay, because what my understanding is that if we are joined by our other board member that's not listed as a board member today, that if he is able to join us, that we will recognize the public as able to be able to participate. And if we do it for one, we'll do it for all. Okay, so just wanted to make sure that.
Yes, thank you. It's so good. So what we mean by norms, and I hope this might be something you take into your meetings as well. It's just kind of being very conscious and aware of, you know, it's like protocols, like how we do our discussions, how we come to our decisions. So, like, Trust, you want to provide an example since you're up there writing?
Some of the ones that came up today were, show mutual respect.
That was good then.
Listen. That was one, so yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
we came up with a whole big list together.
So what do you think on the human interaction levels?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
We're coming up with norms for our meetings, particularly the training meetings we're having, but I would suggest they could hold for you as a group. So how you want, this is how you wanna operate. So respect.
How about mutual person? Mutual.
So again, you can disagree vehemently, but you do it with respect.
Give attention or be open-minded.
What was the first word, Letty?
Be open-minded.
Be open-minded, okay.
That's different than being present.
And listening?
Yeah. Listening, I take away from, because we can kind of listen, or we can listen, yeah, and I'm hearing you say, it's the,
Effective listening.
okay, here we go.
Active.
Active.
Yeah.
Be engaged.
Yeah, when you're here, you're here. Yeah, it's no joke to do that.
Be curious, ask questions.
You already know what you think. So being curious is that like, oh, well, what might you think? Of course, it pairs very nicely with listening and being open-minded.
How does that help? Be patient,
Patience.
because sometimes. Have this way sometimes too, like, oh my god, we're going through the same thing over and over again, come on, dude, like, and then I think to myself, be patient, and it is kind of hard sometimes because. We all have different jobs, we all have different things in our head, and sometimes we just are overwhelmed.
And process information differently, right? Because I know sometimes for me, it's like. Be patient, that's what I'll ask.
I like, can we tease out another, like honor different, ways of thinking about things, different ways of
Oh,
processing.
yeah, I think maybe there's
Yeah, along with being patient and people do. I'm a raging extrovert, I can't pull a thought out of my mind without speaking about it. And other people need to really think deeply and then venture forth, so it's really important to get those on that level. Anything else that feels important? Or these can be a dot, we can stop here and then see how we go, and if you notice something or if you wanna add something by the end of the session. Okay, so I'm gonna play back for you, I did interviews with.
One more thing, just being prepared.
Oh,
being prepared.
that's probably a challenge too. So we did I did interviews with all the board members, although not the newer ones. And these are your strengths, and it's so important. I think a lot of times we have tendencies in business and life to look at what's wrong, and who we have to fix, instead of really thinking how could we leverage some important strengths. So we need to do both. I'm not being Pollyanna here, but here was the biggest strengths that were highlighted. Alignment and commitment to the mission, people being passionate about health and equity, the diversity of this group that we've just been talking about really, and with deep and complementary expertise that we've really, got a lot of ways we can serve. Desire to improve, that I don't really see that on boards, and I've worked with several boards lately, and I would say that's not a given boards, so good for you. Support for CEO, trust and patience with your learning journey and taking on this role. And recognition of past issues. There were some, acknowledgement of challenges and really thinking, now let's really move forward with a new approach. And so sorry, it's kind of small there, but we're here because we believe in the mission. It's just a quote. We all want to be more effective, but we need support to get there. And the board's really finally starting to gel after some churn times. And we're feeling like, it's great. Be more focused.
Does that look better, Sandra?
Sorry.
Is that a little bigger? Is that better that way?
I think the other way was good.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks great. Okay, so we can move forward unless there's any other comments.
Comments or question?
This is from Larry. As far as just putting all the kind of information together from the assessment processes. So this is like what you see with the government enhancement priorities, including an equity lens, which is of course crucial. And your check-ins already, or your objectives, you already started talking about that. And it still can improve internal trust and communication. There's still some lingering tension. Functioning as futurists, that's a pretty big call to be somewhat different and to just always think out further than like, okay, we gotta get this grant done and you gotta set aside time to really be in that space of futurism. So there's kind of a protocol and process that's just there. Any questions or comments on that one? Similar kind of to what we saw on the other slide, actually, we could be a little more cohesive, trust has grown, it's still a little fragile. And specific highlights that I thought were, you're gonna be working on these throughout and we can start thinking about them today. But protocols of decision making, how you measure impact and improving communication across the board, engaging more actively with staff and communities, although I heard quite a bit of that, still more even, and clarify how the board and CEO collaborate and hold each other accountable. So co-creating versus persuading, which I think is really powerful language. That can you make a third way instead of going back and forth between two options? Is there really a third way forward? It's a great practice. Comments or questions about this high level? Does it feel true? Feels right? Okay, good.
Just to clarify, so all of the last few slides all came from the interviews that you all previously.
I know the last few slides were from Larry's group of those.
The governance.
The governance side, and then the first one was the interview side, particularly for the board at the time.
But I will say that there were very consistent themes too,
Yeah.
where what we read from SOA's discovery report, where they talked about collaboration, opportunities to improve, and then some of what Larry noticed in governance really matched up with what we saw from the interviews as well. So that felt very reassuring that all three of our groups that are working with you are kind of aligned in how we're also trying to support you in getting this big work done.
And that, functions as well, but there's some cohesiveness between the strategic planning, governance, and culture.
So thank you for bringing the word culture in, because we're gonna head into some more kind of self-discovery and that kind of thing, based on some of these ways of looking at that issue of self and how we get to be selves. And it's really important to understand your own core values, and there's kind of a lot of ways into that. I really like these dimensions, and I'd love for you to be thinking about where you find yourself on these four of these core values dimensions. This notion of being very direct versus indirect, and you can think of cultures too, and you raised up in different cultures and have different cultural influences. Cultures have individuals have their kind of dimensions here as well as the full cultures. So, if I'm direct, I'm like, you bring that up, you're just wrong. It's fine, it's not with a lot of emotion, it's just like I get to be just that clear. Here's one. And indirect, someone who might say, well, let's explore more perspectives. If you're the recipient of that, that sentence, you have to be thinking, that's a strong stance, that's not someone who's kind of, they just are really uncomfortable with the, what might be starting to happen as a decision. So making sure you can decode that and work appropriately, ask some questions and say, well, what are you uncomfortable with, etc. Expressive, I was using myself and trust. An example, we cannot talk without moving our hands a lot. I'm actually half Greek, so like that at all, but it's just that, and then there are people who just do not move their hands, and that's in the kind of a way of being really super expressive versus being restrained, and it's very, there's respect. What does respect look like in different cultures on different teams? Sometimes respect can really be controlling that expression and having less eye contact and being more again, kind of calm and restrained. And then the individual versus the code in relationship to the collective, to answer that spectrum. So the individual's very much about I, cultures where they say, oh, what do you do for a living? It's kind of the first question when you meet someone, what do you do for work, right? That would be really rude actually in a collective culture. Because collective cultures, we do it, you don't put your own ego up. And so using we pronouns, and the focus being on, let's make sure everyone has this common good. So we don't want people to be too powerful. We want everyone to be feeling that they can make a difference. Equality to hierarchy. So comfort in challenging those with more power, people from cultures that, where it's quite equal. I see you as an equal just because you have a rank. It doesn't mean that you're better than me and that I can't be very direct with you. Over to the other side of hierarchy, where it's that tendency to comply with those who are appointed, your boss or your leader. And that's the way those kind of cultures work. And those are the kind of core, as I said, values, dimensions to be thinking about when I take you into this next exercise, unless you have questions or comments on this. Does it make sense to you? Does it resonate? Seeing some tracking going on, and hopefully you're making connections to your constituencies, you're this team, etc. That's the goal of these kinds of models, is to be really tools to some extent. So here's a bunch of values examples, and we're going to do an exercise now where I'm going to ask you to think about your own core set, and we're going to be sharing those. So this is just to kind of to get you started list. You can see, probably right now, as you're looking at it, there's ones that really jump out to you. There's ones that you kind of skip over, they're not as crucial. And this is important. There may be other values that you don't see on this list that you would like to, put forward as the values you live by. Is that making sense?
There's some words too that are two together, but that's just, we gotta fit it on the slide, so that's, responsibility and security, it's not responsibility, security.
Or diversity, equality. Sorry, I should have done. Yeah, it was really, this is not.
Just wanted to point that out in case it was confusing.
It's my bad, but those are 4 separate ones, thank you. Again, you get to add if you like.
So we're gonna invite you to use the square sticky notes and a black Sharpie so that it shows up well, and for you to choose 5.
We said 5, yeah.
And including if there's one that's not on the list, you can just write it, and then there's a place for everybody over there on that chart to the left of the door to put them up there. I'm happy to help you, or you can go and do them.
There's one per sticky note.
Yeah, let me sticky note, that's best.
Sticky note per
Bar
word.
notes, yeah, because then it's much more legible that way. You can fit them. So.
Five separate words.
So we'll go back to it.
Oh, yes, great question.
We're gonna cheat.
That would be all.
Sam's a commitment to.
Yes.
Once it gets lost, it's not. Right back.
Yes, and this last chance to say, I stood on, come on and stand and love this, look at this, I know you've done a lot of sitting today.
Those fast, they're making me look bad on these.
I was letting you know before the slide changed. Okay, you can copy me.
Can I do six?
Sorry,
Can I do six?
six?
Yes. The sixth one is humor.
That's like one of the values, it's kind of a sub value that her place had the other. I mean, that's coming up with it, it's kind of easily, it's like, sometimes I know, it's like, you're, that's how it tells me that your thought is through this to extent.
Well, the honey was good at us.
Well,
It's kind of like, oh, all of them, maybe most of them, but.
I think that the elements and
I'm glad they put yours at the bottom.
I'm gonna sit on this side, I'm freezing over there, so
We can turn it off or turn it up a little bit.
I don't know.
That's why I went down as well, so. Thank you, Chris.
Turn blue over there.
Yeah, Donna turned it off over there.
Oh, yeah, they're sitting right under the air.
what they're creating there would be. Oh, no. And I'm gonna invite you to come up and check it out as it gets filled out.
I'll just write down.
You can guess. What would you choose?
Today, we filled this in for you. Well, and it's interesting, like you, as colleagues too, to look at, come up and see these, and do they really add up for you? Would it be better to put them there? Or is this still?
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe on this thing.
Uh-oh.
Put some tape, sometimes the top of those, they don't stick through. Don't worry, I got it.
Good, good. Oh, this is, I really look so. Yeah, so just again, notice where you see a lot of overlap, where you see difference. And we'll have a little bit of a conversation about that, and also how you see these values really playing out in your work together.
I don't understand what that O one is, what is it? Opinion?
This one,
Optimism?
optimistic.
Oh, Kimberly's, is that
Oh.
optimistic also? The one in the corner starts with an O.
Optimism. Service, that sense.
No. I got the number, but yeah, I agree.
So what pattern do you see here? What do you see as like the core values showing up?
Respect,
See respect,
if I see that correctly.
Respect.
see integrity, couple, 3 times.
That's in this case, yeah.
What is this one?
Compassion and-
Courage. I think that's the only courage one we have, right?
I do
Oh, we
think in
need-
public service, you have to be courageous, actually stand up and be able to represent your community, I think that. Most many might have.
I changed the meaning of spirituality. Only because Elder Carol there, Presbyterian Elder Carol, I have to live with my flock at church. So my identity is with my church and my Christian belief.
Thank you for that. It's a bit of oversight on the list.
Yeah,
But it should be with
yeah,
it, just bring it
right.
out, yeah. The specifics of yourself.
I think that we all have that, right? We all have spiritual belief in our, what we believe, right? What religion or
non-religious.
or non-religion, whatever. But we have we all have something that's set, you know, that from growing up, they teach it, you know, in the church or not in the church. You know, certain things that we do for like the other person or whatever. And
Yes,
so they're just like set values that we.
it's true. So religions so converge on the values level. If you look at that level, and then the practices can be so different. But again, the value level reflects so much of this. It's a really good highlight. Anything else about you know, how you see this variety of values really serving as a board, that serving you?
I think there's a lot of commonality, to be honest with you. You can interpret words differently, but would still cross over into somebody else's box, for lack of a better word. But I think it goes to Rudy's point too, is that, you know, when you're in public service, which we all are, is that, you know, you don't do this for the pay. You do it because you care, you do it because you're passionate, you're passionate. You have to have integrity, as a public official, you have to have courage, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, integrity is really a through line here. That's,
Yeah, but it's, and the spiritual aspect of it too, I mean, especially on this type of board where we're dealing with the everyday health of individuals across this valley that come from very different walks of life. But again, I think you see a lot of commonality in the board members here.
it makes, it's kind of a question for me. You also go through really hard stuff.
You think,
Yeah, you are in the hardest human problems that we're facing right now. And so, yeah, you have to have, I mean, that's this spirit of there's something more, you know, you gotta believe in something more, so you can just keep at that every day, or how would you keep your?
because I'm not a religious person whatsoever.
Yeah, it has some,
Highly spiritual.
yes, exactly, there's something bigger.
Yeah.
To sustain you, otherwise it's just.
But I would add as well, I don't know if it kind of goes hand in hand with courage or maybe the opposite, but also like, and I don't know how much it would be as a level, but vulnerability. Being
Vulnerability.
Mhm. I think that can either stop us from making a decision or actually we can use that in like, that's how, like, I see it right, like, to see it more of a value, like. You see yourself how you can be vulnerable, but then you overcome that and you realize like, okay, I can, even if I'm gonna be vulnerable, like. I can still proceed and I can still make a decision, I can still be up for my community. Even if it might put us as a vulnerable.
I know that people respond to that, and Yeah,
Oh, I agree, I think you have to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I think it's a matter of not only checking yourself. But also is, you know. It's especially in the work that we do where we see the most. You know, the lowest of income people, the people with the highest needs of medical, and that's both physical and behavioral. The social determinants of health aspect, that you don't recognize vulnerability. It's like, how do you solve for that,
mhm,
both personally and
Right.
and in the community?
right, if you're not vulnerable enough to like open yourself up to the tragedy of what someone's current life.
But I think too, it's like, and the needs are probably, no, nobody put words in mouth, but as someone also with lived experience, it's like. That vulnerability. That vulnerability. Has really led me to do what I'm doing now. And I've worked with the needs and I know it's the same thing for her. On a way bigger scale than me.
Through your lived experiences, you can have the compassion for somebody else that's going through you.
But if you don't have that vulnerability to realize that. Then. And to be open. To be open, yeah.
There's a lot of people that, well, we help them have homeless and we do this and we do that, but that's it, and then they're like, here's your list, you will find it, you know, it's like, okay, you're the case manager, instead of like saying, okay, we have this list, you might qualify for this or whatever, it's like, here's the list, and we'll do it on your, you know.
Which adds to the harm, I mean, which just makes,
It does, cause it makes people feel discouraged, and they're like, you know what, forget it, why am I even asking for help?
yeah, they're not worthy.
You have to learn that. They're feeling something that you might have felt in your own time, you know? It doesn't have to be exactly the same. It can be in a different way, but you feel that same pain of challenges that you've had to overcome. That have hurt. You just have to be vulnerable, see that and compassionate to self.
Really, yeah, and I would share, or ask that, like our shared humanity. You know, like you're going through perhaps a tough time and a tough situation. I've also been through tough times and tough situations, you know, like I can relate to you on that level. Not so much like, okay, well, you're, you know, here, I'm here,
Right.
right? Or, you know, any ideas like we're not here, I'm here to save you. That's not the idea, right? We're here to create opportunities, you know, so that you can thrive and that you can, you know, by your own choices, and desires and path to what you want to do with your life. And I think the vulnerability part is so important because to Grace's point, like with that lived experience, you know, that's how we got into this work in the first place, what drew us to it. But also why we continue to stay and be effective in it is that we meet people where they're at, but also we allow ourselves to be fully present with the people we're working with. So, and to open ourselves so they can get to know us as individuals as well, and not just this like faceless, you know, bureaucratic person, you know, here like, oh, what do you need? Put it on this list, right? But let's have a conversation about it and build that relationship, which takes time.
Yeah, so then that it's already, you're already doing healing work, you're building relationship, you're honoring this human or the group of. So it's actually beginning the cycle of, oh, right there.
And I think that not like our loss of, you know, shared humanity or seeing people, the value in people is a huge problem, part of what we're experiencing today, right? You know, what happens to someone, oh, well, you know, it's like.
Yeah.
You should not be ever taking that kind of a position, you know, of indifference toward another human being, you know, whatever situation they're in.
A
Wow,
lot of people just wanna be heard.
yes,
They
exactly.
just wanna be heard, they say, okay, you know, I might not be feeling what you're feeling, but I can simply be.
And as I emphasize, probably.
With you, you know, because it's a hard situation and. Everybody has hard time.
I don't know if empathy's on the list, did we get some of that? Because I would say, even though I think people here practice a lot of empathy all the time,
Yeah.
you know,
Compassion.
and compassionate, oh, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
really, it kind of,
Right. And I think what I appreciate about the board the most is that we're all have had boots on the ground.
That's right.
And in that, and I think we've got this up already, that we've, are, as Anise says, lived experiences. And, you know, we're not, with a lot of boards have people that are on boards because maybe they're good donors or things like that. But this board is a working board.
Mission driven.
We have life experiences that help us make our decision.
I don't know how to wrap this section up. Sorry.
I think
Oh, please, that's
for
right.
me, the values,
Wrapping.
there's a lot of values that we all, have. And how he said, we all tie into them, and I don't think that we could. For me, it was hard picking the ones that I picked, because there was so many other out there that I can relate to.
Yeah.
But those were like my ultimate. Deal breaker, or whatever, how do you-
So on mine, I same thing as Yvette said, there was several of them that I thought, well, I think this is important. And I would like to think that I hold those values, that I'm able to demonstrate those values. The one thing that I didn't, that I kind of added on there, that wasn't really a personal thing, but I think is like a value for an organization, and that was inquisitive. Not assuming that you know everything, but again, going back to that open-minded, curious. So that was the value that I think that as a board member, we have to be curious. We will have to wanna learn, and we have to wanna be open-minded. So that's the one thing that I kind of just did as a board, not as a board member, not just me, personal values that I would like to consider myself as again, demonstrating those qualities.
Nice. Well, you're, oh, please.
Oh, you were.
No.
And I think with all of these values, to me, the one that rises to the top is integrity. Because every one of these values has to have integrity with it, because if we're doing things that, we may be optimistic, we may be courageous, we may be et cetera, but if we're not doing them with integrity, then I don't think we have the right purpose for what the healthcare district is doing. So to me, that one personally rises above, or rises to the top of all.
Do people have a response to that? Do you feel similar to it?
Well, honesty is honest, so
Yeah.
honesty, integrity.
And we'll say integrity is really saying true to what you claim your values are.
But I think
Roughly.
when being as around nonprofits for so many years, I think that integrity is part of the call of duty. And what it really stands up, whatever organization you're in, that you're there to represent that organization, to go in there with that organization being what you're gonna do your job. And another meeting, I'll go to another one, it's just a call of duty. So I just think that integrity is how you when you're stepping into that room, you're thinking of the best in that organization. So. And many of us wear different hats. We all wear different hats.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when I was looking at some of the comments that people wrote, and I was thinking, it's I kept thinking, okay, being open-minded and trying to understand what everybody's thoughts were, trying to also figure out which ones are mine. But I was thinking, God, the conflict of interest came up a lot. And I thought, is that me saying it or somebody else saying it? And I thought, we all have lives outside this room. Okay, we all have connections, whether it's work related or whether it's other boards that we sit in or family members or where we live. So we're all going to have conflicts, okay? But it's the integrity of when you step in that you're going to act in a way that is in the best interest of that organization. So I think that's what I was, it was very important when I was reading those comments from everybody. I thought it was, integrity is something that is, as a board member, you have to have it. And acting in the best interest, and otherwise you have chaos. Otherwise you have a dysfunctional board. Because you don't understand why you're there and you're fighting against everybody who does have agreement and understanding of why you're there.
Great, perfect, okay, I can. There's not, it's sort of an awkward transition here, but I will take the word conflict and listen to that, because that was an area of opportunity in the data gathering. Is just, and I honestly think for most groups, like, you know, conflict and how you manage that is usually something you have to keep tuning up. This, you get offended and then
You don't always react the same way
yeah,
to certain situations.
so you have to be able to do a solid, you know, to practice conflict in a way that moves things forward, that doesn't damage, you know, folks along the way, that builds relationships. So we offer this what we call productive conflict declaration, which is just disagreement that matters. And it is characterized by curiosity, deep listening, and radical empathy. And the goal, you know, really operating that way is gaining this deeper understanding of others' perspectives without requiring agreement. And so it can be uncomfortable. It maybe should be a little uncomfortable because you might have to be really thinking about, you know, your own perspectives relative to this other person. And so that we want to kind of take that. Well, first of all, let me ask about this definition. Does that sound about right? That's what you would do when I'll say this word. We're kind of getting in and noticing that it's productive versus, you know, destructive. So what I wanted to have you do in pairs is really talk through in some detail how conflict and disagreement is handled today, what is working and what could improve. And then we'll have a little bit of a report out. So we'll probably just take about 10 minutes to have the conversation and we can have our time. And if it makes sense just to turn towards, do we have two, 3? Unison.
Okay. And I'll just say too, if there's ever any time that me being here causes you to not open and be more communicative between each other in that sense, I can step up, so.
Yeah,
I call it again.
Well, meaning, you know, I just want everybody to be comfortable in this setting. I want to participate, but I don't want to create.
right, you're not exactly a board member. That's the first time. Thank you. All right, so Pat, I'll give you about 10 minutes to have this chat. Let's see how you go.
I'm sorry, I have a
Yeah.
question. So how's conflict disagreement handled today
Here in this,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
in this, very good,
in this group?
yeah,
Okay,
and on the board.
okay.
Chris, you might be learning something. Somebody could probably do some of these things.
Maybe it was.
The board members themselves have like if there's been disagreement. You would give everyone an opportunity to speak to someone and then having conversations. So we can learn with expression. It's nice to what is it. I just don't know.
Other work.
You and something that you get would always facilitate this. Which I felt,
I think the
always responsibility.
Is not necessarily being disrespectful.
That's what it's really fun to be.
Give some people. Don't scream at you. That's the way they are. Or that's the way they are.
That all of this thing.
That's also the.
Just this past year, having Dan come on board. I thought it was fine, beginning it was a little bit the people when you have somebody you just like them, these are just be. But I really be here that this message that has only 6 months or so. We're back to the meetings, I said, I see like this kind of work, I have to go to this. We started the year, it would be that, and then we find we'll start sitting on that. There's used to be more like that. So, I think, you know, just, it's like my goodness, it's needs. The doors, the wall, the so I'm just concerned that and that. Journey, it's like the photos, it's thinking about how to make business, especially every must, everybody that got house. So I can probably just be able to tell. Well, I'm supposed to have become this else to be yes. And everybody see off. Smart discussion. And I also sense that's absolutely but then that's really just well out. So that's like but we went through some jump to consulting. So I think that's working really well. Take a little bit more time to get to know.
But I don't know, you know, just.
Well, I think the insurance too. Yeah. Yeah. And our neighbors.
Yeah. Actually over there.
Yes, so I hope that way. And hey, that's just. And so we could be there. I really wanted to be on the agenda and I know that really feels creative. And I think that we trust the got mad like the key afterwards I realized it's just a knack of knowledge. And I used to this morning. My mom was but when I say something and I know it's slowly correct. I'm gonna say something. I can't say what I'll ask somebody else. Jeff. But that meeting, it was just really thanks to you, really best, that, when we did, it was. So it was. And I. But I think that's how.
It's kind of nice. Animals across the street. And he was very strong.
I mean, it's always relevant.
Those ways.
So I can and
Those books actually for my and then they can build this. So they will hurt me. So when you get close to me. That's one thing you can see. That's what that's right.
Like,
Call out changes of part, meeting Wisconsin.
yeah,
We're not gonna go on that being important.
and to, and not be afraid to. Express our opinion.
Every, yes, we have like. It's already good.
That's fine.
You have a challenge.
You're in Philly, you're going, you know, they, it's especially. Really, yeah, excellent. It's in the meeting. Time, you know.
I started that. I know that to be, just, after everyone.
You know, that people sticking to the floor.
Decent to it, I
know, because
that's it, that's it. I try to, it's fine, change on my board, instead of.
Sorry. No, but I did that.
And
And it's better, stuff better. That I did.
That's important, when there's between. Space that really no space. Yes, that's.
Too bad. I think we should even before the. Before people and something tomorrow, and the kids who notices you are fine, and now I'm
Trying to make sure that we am also.
Alright, and it sounds like winding down, is it okay to bring us back to the large group?
And that's our role.
Yeah, it's not.
It's all.
So they're bringing up, oh, they're bringing up, wait, fine.
It's just like describe the.
Because the. Should be just. Seems to be.
Right, and get it more. Seeing the time, I'm just gonna jump in and get look at some material that the staff is also going to be working with. And it is this idea of calling in instead of calling people out, especially around conflict and when you're in a disagreement. So how do you work with each other? And someone has said something that kind of, you know, is intense and maybe doesn't feel great at all, but how do you respond? And this notion of pausing is huge. It's the brain science, you know, it's the like stop and breathe and allow your body and your brain to kind of settle down instead of just being in, you know, the fight mode, which is kind of where you tend to go. And then asking a question of yourself, is this the moment to really call someone in as opposed to talking about what calling, this is what calling in looks like. And that starts with, you know, what's my intention? If my intention is to shame someone or make them feel bad, you know, don't do if that's really what I wanna do, then it's not the moment to do some processing because it won't go well. So inviting them into growth is the next moment there. Great question. How can we handle moments like this together in the future? And being able to acknowledge the complexity perhaps that there is intent and impact. There's those two things. And you know, you may not have had that intent, but you did have that impact. And not just putting those two things together as if they were one, and successful and capable like that. And centering relationship over being right is crucial too. And that's, I think, I know personally, that's the hardest one for me. I'll just say, you know, especially when I'm really convinced and I feel kind of, you know, like, I just wanna say you're wrong. So a great reframe of that is I value our relationship and wanna share something with you. So, and it has to be really sincere, to be in that place of, I do value this and I'd like to go forward with the conversation. Maybe the impact without shame, shame is again, the showstopper. Do not act well.
It's another copy.
Go for the hospital.
Yes.
And being curious, not certain. I think especially if, you know, something happens, you feel insulted, you go away and think about it. for a while, you know, and then, you know, you could come back so certain about how bad that was, and you know, you looked at it in all kinds of ways and why it's so terrible. And then if you lead with that, you have no ability to learn anything, to some curiosity. So it can be a really hard shift, but that's, you know, that's the practice, that's the work to really have very productive conflict. That's what we're talking about. Conflict, maybe you can, you know, conflict, we all get raised in different cultures of conflict. That's a truth too. When it can be extremely passive aggressive, you know, for in some families, etc. But we all need to learn, you know, to embrace it, to be able to gain the differences that are around us and implement. So know your own kind of, that'd be kind of a takeaway for you all to really think about how were you formed around conflict and what conflict looks like, what it means, to start. And we'll do some more work on this in our next session. Any questions or comments on? Makes sense. Would you want to go around and share a little bit about which, you know, where you kind of tend to go when conflict arises? How comfortable you are? Comfortable?
I can tell you about a situation that just came up with me. And it was one of our free clinics, one of our mobile vans. And the place we were at, the church we were at, the women were doing intake with homeless people. And they had their little form and they made sure everybody got in. But there was one homeless person that did not get through that hole and did not want to be interviewed, did not want to go through but didn't even want to sit down, and the women were just so upset over it, and here I am trying to make everybody comfortable. And so I just finally came up to them and said, you know, we need to have a little bit of compassion here, that not everybody's gonna fit in. And I think I sort of yelled at them. I mean, it's not you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, I had to make my point. And, you know, and I picked up the clipboard, it's in front of them, I said, is your name John Smith? He said, yeah. And so I wrote down John Smith, and we were having fun making up fun answers to the questions on the clipboard. So that sort of dialed down the conflict, but that was something that canceled.
That's a nice strategy of deflection, like that's exactly what you did, and that is a strategy in conflict, is to deflect. And find another, you know, thing to be wrapping the conversation. Nice. The other comments, I know is like our time, so we don't have to go around and have everyone say.
I'm trying to be very careful that it's not my feelings that's guiding me to say words. I have to leave the emotions away from like the answer or whatever I'm gonna decide on or gonna say, because I think that when we cannot separate those things, we could say really mean things that we don't even need to someone that we actually agree on something, or we might be agreeing on something, but had a bad day or whatever, or you're just overwhelmed, or you don't know how to communicate, or you're just not there. And so I was trying to be very careful, because I know how hurtful we can be when we just speak our emotion.
You're making me think that, especially if you've been in a relationship with someone for quite a while, you understand, you know, kind of how they think, what their language is, and trying to come in on that lane instead of just sticking with your own. You know, that's another deeper layer of making it easier for the person to understand the impact, to not feel ashamed about it, because you're honoring kind of how they think and process.
I would piggyback off that a little bit too, is that I think it's important to take some time. And you don't necessarily have to solve the conflict right now.
Yes.
Because it gets to the emotional aspect. It also allows both parties to assess what they brought into that conversation. I mean, that's work and relationship.
Yeah. Try not to go into it, eat it up, it's so nice to
I mean, then, you know, there's that whole adage, like, you never go to bed mad at each other. Sometimes it's okay to go to bed mad at each other.
I didn't say to-
Once you're in brief.
Exactly.
The other thing that I do is always try to bring us back to what is it that we want to solve, like what's the actual,
Mhm.
right, to take away
Yeah.
everything and say, what is it that we're trying to
Yeah.
an answer for, and then even if we don't have it, at least we're both, or the group is in alignment, like this is what we're trying to accomplish, right? How we get there is that's where.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and just a shout out for the power of curiosity, like just to think, that is so, yeah, and that's detachment too, so like, no, it's gonna not literally just zoom out, think, what, you know, cause you know, sometimes this person had a really terrible day. And it's not really them you talk to, so the more detachment, the more perspective, the more. That can really help, just again, have it much more productive and be a calling in instead of a kind of flashing out.
I think that's a really good point, because I was thinking of that too, and you know, I know I do this sometimes, but like if I don't get maybe the response that I want, or like I came in and like, oh, you know, Greg he didn't say hi to me the same way that he usually does, now it's like, oh, great, you know, so now we're not gonna be able to work the whole meeting, you know, what you're doing there, and like, what did I do to upset Greg? As opposed to maybe Greg had a hard day,
Yeah.
or maybe there's.
Greg did have a hard day.
Greg had a hard day.
I think that's the part of that.
You know, the world is crazy.
Yeah.
Right,
Ready to go home and.
that's the.
I'm decent, right?
Yeah.
It's not about me, because very quickly, it's so easy to just make it all about me, and then how effective are we gonna be working together when, oh, I'm making this about me, as opposed to showing some compassion,
Yeah.
having some patience, and saying, you know what, it's not about me. And if it was, he'd probably tell me, so maybe I don't need to worry about it, maybe I don't need to worry about it.
Know your person too, is
Right.
very, as in, yeah, to pick the right strategy.
I'm sure be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get to that point. That's good.
Do you have anything to add, Trust?
The only thing I'll add is that I will send you a link to Loretta Ross's TED Talk. It's definitely worth watching. She's a fantastic woman, a professor at Smith and a reproductive justice feminist for her whole entire life. And she is the one that inspired us to look at this work. And so she's written a book called Calling In, and she wants to try to change the world and have people call each other in instead of calling them out, so that we can learn how to see each other's differences and to connect across differences and be more curious. So hope you enjoy that. We'll make sure that you get that in any kind of a recap that we'll do for this meeting today.
I think a lot more people should listen.
Yes,
Especially with
me
the
too.
things that are going on right now.
Yeah,
So true. You will also hear that she believes that this is coming from a place of love, and you don't hear that all the time. So that also very inspired me, and I think is also part of what we need in order to
yeah.
create a different future together.
To the heart of that conversation about religion and faith, you know, that's love, that starts with. To be successful in something like this, start with the love. Yeah. That might be our closing statement, but I'd love to hear if there's any key takeaways or kind of things you're puzzling about as we close.
Are we gonna do this again?
Yes, we have a second session coming up, so this is kind of building. And then we're gonna,
Well, what our plan is that Sindra will have one more session with you all, and then our goal is to have some sessions where we have time with you and the staff. So we're, we also, any ideas that you might have about that are welcome. We wanted to wait and have these sessions and then figure out what would be useful for all of you to come together and learn and collaborate together. So that's coming in the future.
and love to, I don't know if you all have our emails, but if you don't, let's get them to you, then just ping us with ideas or like. Something sitting that didn't work so well this time, critique it, that's great. What other content could be of interest to you, or in this, you know, basically what we're talking about is building your team up, you know, to weather a lot of stuff that's coming these days and to be more connected and understanding of each other. You know, you're already a very connected team, but it's can always keep going. So input, feedback, very welcome.
Any homework, anything that we should be thinking?
I might send you something, cause like you have actually been the session, you know, I feel like it's just been, but you know, but pointing you in the direction, and so I'd love to just, you know, sit with all the information you've shared and the thoughts, and then come back with the agenda, we would definitely do that.
We are proposing though using the DISC assessment, so there will be probably like 20 minutes of taking that self-assessment to understand your own communication style and complex style, and then we'll have actual data to reinforce this conversation next time you're together. Yeah, so there will be that, but I think that's yeah, we don't wanna load you up with homework, we want it to be about what's happening here in the room.
And this is a super fun one, you know, just put, have to ask 20 questions or something like that, and then you get a result of kind of where you are on this, and it's not like you're only in Drive or you're only, you know, you have a little kind of a heat map inside this, and then that's another great, you know, readout with the group to see, well, where, you know, where you have. And then you can kind of explain to yourself sometimes where you do have some, you know, friction, and then how might you use that instrument to help you resolve it.
Has anybody not done the DISC assessment?
Oh, you are.
I don't think I've done this one.
I don't think
I've done a similar assessment.
Yeah. You'll see some threads, like there's insights is another one that's kind of similar to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
But we thought because of its real focus on communication, conflict, and the report itself is called the workplace report, so it does have really good things that are workplace appropriate, you know, like work
Yes.
relationships.
yeah.
So, do we go to that? Do we look that up or?
No,
will
you'll
we
get
pay-
You'll get an
invite
Oh,
to it. And then we get the report. To both parties have the report?
Yeah, we'll get it and we'll send it to you, and then I think we're also gonna make a team snapshot.
Yeah,
So that we can see, I don't know, hopefully I'm not giving away a spoiler, but you know, like what is the component of. all these things? Yeah, okay.
So we will be working on getting the next meeting, next workshop scheduled for this work as well as governance. So
meeting, not.
For purposes of the meeting, are there any public comments on this item? No. Any final comments from board members? No. All right, then meeting adjourned at 5:35. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
For the next, the committee member tomorrow, for the.
And I want your t-shirt.
They brought.
Oh, flash it on.